Hello, Facebook Live. We are live here with Robert Abate and Marcia Reynolds. I'm going to bring Marcia back here just to say hi. And if you're watching this right now, feel free to like this, share this, spread the word. We've got all kinds of important things to be talking about today. Looks like Marcia is not on video yet. Oh, I see a little chat message right here. Yes, we are live, Marcia, to answer your chat right there, which is all good. We're going to take Robert's interview first. Now, for all of you, Be the Talk, Talk Universe people, friends, fans, family, if you recall, episode 360 was really the father of, internet privacy, the father of internet insurance. Our friend and we had Stephen Adler. I'm blanking out all over the place, but Stephen Adler invited me to attend his conference on big data, ocean data management, and ocean data, the Ocean Data Challenge. I'll say it that way. And that's where I briefly met Robert Abate, who is with me right here. And we're going to do a brief interview about that because I have been collecting stories, and there's a real, just a real treasure trove of experts in the data management industry. We all love the ocean. We all go to the beach. We all go to the lake. We all need our waterways and oceans, and we're figuring out together, kind of building the ship at sea to create a better tomorrow and really try to save and resuscitate what we have. Robert, is that a fair way of putting that before we actually formally jump into the interview intro?
I think that's a very fair way to say it. Stephen had called it the Oceans Data Alliance and Challenge, which was to bring together industry experts from insurance, from research organizations, the government, and folks like the Scripps Oceanographic Research Institute to try and collect all information about the oceans.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump right into that right now. The format's just a little bit different. It's a little shorter than we normally have, and it's all good. And even if you weren't able to be in that event, which very few people were at that event at the United Nations just a month ago, you'll be able to hear a little bit of the backstory, what we learned, and some of the challenges that we have moving onward. So anyway, let's see here. Let's go live in 3, 2. We are live with Robert J. Abate. Robert, are you ready to talk?
I'm ready to talk.
Well, this is the Ocean Data Podcast. In January 17th, 2019, at the United Nations, a bunch of industry thought leaders from the data management world came together in New York City at the request of Stephen Adler, who is the founder of the Ocean Data Alliance. And in his words, he says, "We know data can make a difference. We are committing to work together to use data strategy to answer key questions and affect change to change and save the ocean and our planet." So that's why we came together. Here's a little bit about Robert. Robert J. Abate is an industry thought leader in data with 30 years experience in enterprise information management, data governance, big data, data science, analytics, and architectures. He is the chief data officer at Global IDs, where he assists clients in understanding and managing data ecosystems. Robert Abate, welcome to our conversation today.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So the first question that I've been asking people, Stephen, from a ways back, why did you decide to come to the Ocean Data Challenge?
Well, I've known Stephen for many years. The industry has had brought together, Stephen had collected a number of thought leaders to challenge them to say the oceans are right now under attack with some issues, and was there a way we could bring together a number of different thought leaders, both in the industry, for example, the Scripps Oceanographic Institute, Woods Hole, the government, who collect data and information on the oceans, and government agencies, as well as private industry, to try and collect all the information we can about the oceans, number of fish, tides, temperatures, and pull all that information together to help researchers understand what is happening.
So, great backstory, Robert, and great collective interest in the reason why we all came together. What was your top takeaway there? The sessions, it was a 2-day event. It was pretty packed. There were no real formal breaks. It was a true think tank in there. What was your some of your top takeaways, or your number one top takeaway?
Well, I would say the top takeaway is that everyone was very interested in intellectual sharing of information. We all had different points of view. People from the insurance industry who were looking at how could we use this information, for example, to improve insurance policies on shipping, fisheries, how could we understand the use of that information. But it all boiled down to we had learned that there were so many different data sources, and all of those data sources were out there, but disjunct. No one had ever tried to collect all this information and bring it together. And as you know, in an analogy, all the information in the world doesn't help if it's not understood. So we would have to collect all the information and then merge it together, creating metadata and turning it into information which becomes usable.
And there were all kinds of issues. I mean, for me as kind of an outsider looking in, I was really drawing upon my background as a former graduate adjunct professor in instructional design. So I was the guy who goes in there, talks with the experts, learns the expert lingo on the fly almost with preparation, and tries to make sense of it all, and having the benefit of kind of the outsider's perspective to be able to go into the silo, outside the silo, and kind of bridge the gap so that we can empower other people. And so, I mean, it seemed to me like the first day we were really delving into some of those technical issues of, do the data sets match up, and how much, repair work would we need to do, and what are the criteria, and who gets to decide, all these kinds of common issues. And then the second day, it really pivoted over to kind of the future and persuasion and influence and behavioral change, and really the power of story and the power of, visual and audio storytelling to be able to inspire other people to really take action and join this movement, and even create new movements out there. Would you say that's a fair assessment, Robert?
I would say it's a very fair assessment. The first day, as you noted, we tended to delve into, scripts, we have this information. Unfortunately, due to the government shutdown, some of the government attendees weren't there, so that stopped NOAA and some other government resource organizations from participating. But we spoke about data the first day, and I think after we all slept, the next day we were enlightened, and we said, well, we've got all this data, but together or separately, it has no value. So we had a number of thought leaders, Dr. Anne-Marie Smith, a leader in data governance, and others, Dr. Arka Mukherjee, people who have spent their lives working with information, to enlighten the group, saying, well, we've got all this data. What we need to do is catalog it and understand it. And in order to do that, we have to go out, discover all the assets we have. So we left there with a charge to say, let's look at all the data sets we have, and let's pull them together. Let's look at what they contain, how they can be joined together, so that we can turn raw data like the number 23 into information. 23 Chinese fishing vessels that are 100 miles off our coast.
Yeah, 23 what? There's a whole classification that I was kind of picking up and learning on the fly. I already knew that data were plural. It's hard for me to say that. I always thought data was singular, but data are plural. And other things like that I'm learning on the fly. But there's a whole classification system, and what's the difference between data and information, as you eloquently say here as well. Robert, how is your participation in the Ocean Data challenge really going to help you in the future as you continue to build bridges? Obviously, you're at the top of your game in the industry, but how is that going to help maybe your agenda, some of your personal goals as a humanitarian, as a business person, as a chief data officer moving forward?
Well, the whole Oceans Data Alliance that Stephen had pulled together was an idea that he's been working on, and we actually recently had a conversation with someone who did something similar, had led the charge against AIDS. So we were learning about how do you get the globe to understand that learning about the information in the oceans could be helpful. And to your point, exactly. We have to first find all our assets. In the data field, we call that discovery. Go out and learn. What do we have available to us? The next thing we would need to do is profile it. A lot of that data might have holes in it. It might have data this year, but not that year. And after that, you need to classify, which is now collect all the information. So, and by classify, I mean create a semantic understanding of the data and how it ties together. And that's really what the data in the data industry, we at Global IDs are known for, which is looking at data ecosystems and scanning. With the advent of the compute power, with Moore's law and the increase and rise of compute power exponentially growing, we now have the ability to, in an automated fashion, scan all data assets and connect the dots using computers with both supervised and unsupervised learning.
So this is what your company does. This is what Global ID does all day long, takes data sets and makes sense out of them.
Correct. We work in some of the world's largest corporations. We scan all of the data. Today in one customer, for example, we're over 2.5 million columns of information. A column is just consider like an Excel spreadsheet, a column in an Excel spreadsheet, whereas a row is the actual data. So we go and we scan all the information that we would get from the oceans, from NOAA, from any data source we could get our hands on, and then start to classify that information, creating what we call a semantic term. So ocean temperature, that's a term. A semantic object may be the Atlantic Ocean state, which is the temperature, the tides, and a number of different semantic elements. So that's something that all enterprises need, and that's something why Stephen had involved myself and other experts in data governance.
Now, at the end of this interview, I'm going to give you the information that Robert provided to me, which is his LinkedIn profile. I'm going to ask right now, what's the website for Global IDs, just so that people that listen to that can go and find out more of what you're doing, Robert?
Sure. It's www.globalids.com.
Simple enough.
Yep.
Short and sweet. Globalids.com, globalids.com. Here's my last question for you. The last session was really very poignant, very important, because it was all about the future. Yeah. And Stephen was brilliant because he just kind of opened up his hand at the end. He said, start your own alliances, start your own movements, bring other people in, bring other industries, bring younger people in. So my question to you, Robert, is where would you like to see this heading in the future?
You are dead to nails, if you will. Stephen described that a call to action for all of us in that room, of many different backgrounds, of many different thought processes, to come together to try and collect all this information. So we had groups who were about as far disparate in terms of their knowledge and background. To have insurance industry in a room with scripts, in the room with a data expert, in the room with people who, for example, are working on cleaning up the oceans. All of those different talents came together and realized that we could, as a team, no one individual could solve this problem, but as a team, we could all start to create data sets, start sharing those data sets. And then as part of that, create some insights that we could then use as a story to go out and enlighten people. Show, for example, the changes of tides over the history of the last 100 years, or other information that might enlighten someone to do a research project, or to charge someone to start another research effort in the government. So the poignant call to action that he left the meeting with was one I think we all took on.
Well, we've been enjoying this conversation with Robert J. Abate. He's got 30 years experience in enterprise information management, data governance, all kinds of different things. We're talking about the Ocean Data Challenge that we attended back in January of 2019. And if you want to connect with Robert about any of these issues, you can go to his company website, globalids.com. globalids.com. We will also have the LinkedIn link for Robert. It is linkedin.com. Robert J. Abate is Abate, just like it sounds. Robert J. Abate on LinkedIn. Back to you, Robert, for the final word.
Well, I want to thank you for bringing this information to the public's attention. That we really do need to look at all of our assets in the globe, not just the oceans, but specifically in this case, understanding that we have all of these different data sources and data points, and by bringing them together, we could use it to correct problems, to solve issues, and that's, I think, what we all as humanitarians want to do.
Well, Robert J. Abate, thank you so much for coming on to the Ocean Data Podcast and sharing your wisdom with us today.
Well, thank you, sir. I really appreciate it.
All right, that's a wrap.
All right.
It's short and sweet, but we want people leaning in, and we want them to continue the conversation with you at your website or reach out in some way. So absolutely.
I appreciate the plug. I wasn't expecting it, but we're starting a conversation that hopefully will get people interested and involved. And I mean, that's the way we had a call. I guess I mentioned it on the call. We had a call with the person who led the AIDS project, and the work he did was inspiring. He went country to country, got people involved, grabbed celebrities. So we're going to try and do the same thing with the oceans. And I noticed a lot of people in the room were really excited leaving the United Nations. So I don't know if you got to tour that building. That was amazing.
I did. Yeah, I got to tour afterwards, and I found out that they don't take kindly if you break off from the tour to leave early to catch your bus. So, like, why is this door locked? Why is this door locked? Why is there a wall here?
I heard that from someone. Someone was trying to leave and they couldn't get out. And they ended up in the employee cafeteria.
Yeah, I got a very confused, well-meaning staff member there who looked at me but said, "But your tour isn't open yet, or your tour isn't done yet." And I looked at him and said, "Well, my bus is leaving. I need to leave." Right. but your tour isn't done. But I need to leave.
I need to leave. There's a flight waiting for me. Oh, great. Hey, listen,
it was fun.
If I could ever help you in any way, please feel free. I mean, you don't have to plug my company. I'm available to you. And whenever you run into these challenges of big data and data science, there's a lot of different things going on. I was on a call yesterday. They were talking about the ethics of big data. For example, we now can talk into Siri and find out information. And in the back end, we can predict a lot of information. What is missing is what's in the middle, which is we're storing a tremendous amount of information about people. And ethically, there's there are points where you can cross the line. I could find out, for example, at Walmart, if I allowed it, what my neighbor was buying, at the store. So those ethical questions. There are legal questions. They're all starting to come into the forefront with things like the Global Data Privacy Act of Europe, GDPR.
Yeah.
And the California Consumer Protection Agency, CCPA. These are all starting to address these issues. And that's a field I wrote the chapter for the DAMA DMBOK, the Data Management Body of Knowledge on Big Data and Data Science. So I'm kind of giving these thoughts to people. Consider there's going to be a lot, and the oceans are an example of it. We're collecting information from these buoys about tides and temperatures and wind speeds, and you start to collect all this information, and at some point it becomes a little scary.
Well, and you don't know the Big Brother issue and the hacking and the dark web and all of these different things. Absolutely huge. So I will absolutely reach out offline to you. I am seeing in the chat, looks like we're having a little bit of tech issues with Marcia. Wanted to bring her on live. And what we're going to do instead is I'm going to shut down the Facebook Live. We're going to go to the backup Zoom channel, which is not Facebook Live, but we're going to conduct that interview about her amazing latest amazing book. Robert Abate, thank you so much for joining me today. And if you care about the oceans, go ahead and share and tweet and spread the message so that we can get more people on the team here. There are 7.5 billion of us out there, and we all need to have a part and a role to play to turn things around.
Join the team and be the talk. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.